Can you go to?
Hello everyone, I am Janish from Group 19 with my team members.
Hello guys, I am Fozia Wadiwala.
Hi, I'm Stuti.
Hi, I'm Gajraj Jaiswal.
Hello, I'm Harsh Gaurav.
I'm Manvi Shekhawat.
And I am Netri Shah.
To present the book The Unusual Billionaires by Saurabh Mukherjee sir. The author explains what is greatness through seven unusual companies. Why are these companies truly unusual? Because their greatness is measured, not emotional. The book uses a simple three-step process. First, only companies with a market cap above rupees 100 crores are considered. Second, performance is tracked over 10 years to capture full economic cycles. And third, only superior financial performers qualify. Manufacturing companies must deliver revenue growth above 10% and ROC above 15%. Banks must deliver ROE and loan growth above 15%. These numbers matter because India's nominal GDP grows around 14 to 15% and the cost of capital is close to 15%. Only companies that meet both consistently creates real wealth. That's why they are not just successful, they are unusual. Now, let's talk about the author, which will be presented by Netri Shah.
Okay, so a bit more about the author Saurav Mukherjee. He's the founder of Marcellus, which is an investment managers group, and he's also a leading um, le- he's a leading investor in India. He's also a CFA charter holder, and he studied at the London School of Economics. He's also a former CEO of this group called Ambit Capital, and he built a top institutional equities business. He's also the author of best-selling books like The Unusual Billionaires and Coffee Can Investing, and he is known for research-driven and long-term investment philosophies.
Let's start with a quick introduction to CCP, that is Coffee Can Portfolio. Most investors spend time worrying about when to enter and when to exit the market. But CCP does the opposite. It focuses on what to own, not when to trade. If a business has strong fundamentals, consistent growth, and a competitive advantage, then time became the biggest ally. By avoiding frequent buying and selling, CCP helps investors stay away from emotional decision, transaction cost, and short-term market noise. So CCP is less about prediction and more about discipline, patience, and trust in business quality. So, my colleague Gajraj will take over the next topic, that is business strategies.
Thank you so much, Fozia. Now we'll discuss about the business strategies. On this slide, I've summarized the business strategies of seven companies discussed by the author. Although they operate in different industries, what's interesting is that the author shows how these strategies follow a common philosophy rather than an isolated tactic. The author's idea of business strategy is not about bold vision statements or rapid expansion. Rather, the strategy here means focused execution over long periods of time, where companies choose consistency and durability over short term gains. You'll notice that the slide is divided into banking sector and manufacturing sector, but the thinking behind strategy remains the same. If we start with HDFC Bank, its strategy is best described as a risk averse, process driven culture. Rather than chasing aggressive loan growth, the bank prioritized high asset quality and conservative lending. What's insightful here is that HDFC Bank treated technology as a strategic weapon and not just as a support tool. By building a low cost funding franchise through settlements and cash management businesses, it created a stable and repeatable advantage. Axis Bank shows how strategies can evolve without losing discipline. The bank continuously shifted from away from corporate lending towards retail assets and liabilities. This wasn't done for faster growth, but for more granular and less risky income. Data analytics played a key role, allowing Axis Bank to cross sell products to its existing customer base. So, in banking, the author shows that good strategy is about managing risk intelligently and not eliminating it. On the right side, we have the manufacturing sector. So, let's talk about the Asian paints and Berger paints first. In manufacturing, Asian and Berger paints demonstrate how dominance is built at the distribution level. Asian Paint created a lasting advantage by using data and technology to optimize its supply chain. Over time, this operational excellence became a moat that competitors found extremely hard to replicate. Berger Paints, on the other hand, focused on dealers' loyalties. By introducing tinting machines and improvising dealers' economics, Berger itself made itself indispensable to its distributing network. Marico and Page Industries highlight the role of aspirational branding combined with discipline. Marico transformed from a commodity business into an FMCG leader by building brands like Parachute and Saffola, while also exiting businesses where returns were weak. This shows how knowing what to do and what not to do is also a strategic decision. Page Industries followed a similar logic by keeping manufacturing in house and maintaining strict pricing discipline. Page protected the premium positioning of the jockey brand. Astral Poly finally shows that even in a commoditized market, strategies can be created instead of competing only on price. Astral, tar- Astral targeted plumbers as influencers and backed this product innovation through global partnership. This turned a low margin product into a brand driven business. So, the author's message here, at the center of the slide, the author's main message is he argues that the corporate greatness is a conscious choice. These companies deliberately choose to behave like Rahul Dravids of the corporate world. Consistency, discipline, and focus on the long term. For investors, the lesson is equally simple but difficult to follow. Identify such rare businesses and leave them in your portfolio untouched for a decade, allowing for the power of compounding to work. So, in this book, the business strategy is ultimately about patience, integrity, execution, execution repeated consistently over time. Now, let's move on to the next slide.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Harsh, and I'll be covering competitive mode from the unusual billionaires. So first, what do we really mean by a competitive mode? It simply means a company has something so strong in its business model that it can keep earning high profits and high returns on capital for many years, and competitors still struggle to catch up. Now, the book makes one very important point. Moats aren't created by one big idea, they are created because a company launched one product or did one smart campaign. It's not because of that. They are built slowly through systems, processes, and relationships. And over time, those things become extremely hard to copy. Now, in this particular slide, the moat has been broken into three parts. The first part is process led advantage. The best example here is Asian Paints. Asian Paints didn't become number one just because their paint was better or it had good quality. Their real strength was in how they built their business. They created a huge direct to dealer distribution network, strong dealer relationships, and an extremely efficient supply chain. So even if a competitor tries to offer discounts, it's difficult to match Asian Paints on service, availability, and reach. And that is what creates loyalty and switching costs. Now, the second part is systems built over decades. And this is where HDFC Bank comes in, and I would say is a great example. HDFC's moat comes from its internal systems, especially credit appraisal and risk management. They built a culture where lending is done carefully, monitoring is strong, and risk taking is controlled. That's why they remain stable across cycles, whereas other banks have had phases. Many banks can grow fast in good times, but when the cycle turns, weak systems get exposed. and HDFC survived because the system is strong. Coming to our third part is high switching costs through relationship. A good example here from the book I would say is Astral Polytechnique. Astral got early advantage in CPVC pipes, yes, but what really strengthened the moat was the ecosystem they built, especially with plumbers. They invested in training, familiarity, trust, and once plumbers got comfortable with one product, switching became very difficult. And similarly, Page Industries also benefited from exclusive licensing with Jockey, which protects the brand and pricing power. So, from all of this, I would say the big takeaway is that execution beats ideas. In the long run, it's not the company with the most exciting strategy that wins. It's the company that executes the basics better, year after year, until it becomes almost impossible to compete with them. Thank you. The next one.
So I'll be talking about the art of pivot and how market leaders change and like they correct their mistakes. So a core theme in the book is that even the best and wealthiest creators have made serious mistakes. One of the clearest examples is of Axis Bank. Um, Prior to 2015, they had a very aggressive corporate lending, which led to weak and like a lot of weak underwriting and a sharp rise in NPAs, which could have permanently damaged the franchise. But the management made sure that they took note of their mistake and they slowed down growth, cleaned up the balance sheet, and shifted focus towards retail lending and governance. Then for HDFC Bank, they faced a completely different challenge. They had a tough time scaling rapidly, and um, they got into a lot of risk culture. The risk was not just bad loans, but bad complacency and with their cultural dilution. The bank bettered this through decentralized decision making, strong process controls, and long term incentives. This also shows that avoiding mistakes at scale requires systems and not just individual brilliance. The third example is Asian Paints and Berger Paints. Paints highlights the risk of complacency as a market leader. So instead of price wars, it invested continuously in technology, supply chains, and dealer analytics to defend its moat. And Berger Paints, as a late mover, faced the challenge of catching up without destroying its margins. It chose gradual, disciplined investments rather than a lot of aggressive expansion. So, together, they show that competitive advantage must either be actively defended or patiently built. Then there's Marico, which faced pressure to chase growth through diversification, some of which diluted their returns. Management pulled back and refocused capital on core brands like Parachute and Sephora, making and maintaining an asset light model. Here, the key takeaway is that growth without high ROCE destroys long term value. Then lastly, Astral Poly and Page Industries highlight that execution risk during that like there's a lot of execution risk during rapid scaling. Astral risked quality and working capital stress, while Page risked brand dilution through aggressive store expansion. In both these cases, management slowed down, tightened controls, and prioritized quality and trust over speed. This shows that restraint itself can be a competitive advantage. So, like through all these companies, the author's conclusion is clear that unusual billionaires are not those who avoid mistakes, but those who respond rationally, reallocate capital decisively, and protect long term compounding. So, basically, we know that mistakes are inevitable, but permanent damage is optional, which we can see through all these companies. Now we can move on to the next slide.
To understand how companies create long term wealth, we look at John Kay's IBAS framework. That is, I stand for innovation, B stand for brand and reputation, A stand for architecture, and S stand for strategic assets. These four pillars explain the sources of sustained competitive advantage rather than short term performance. Innovation allows company to continuously improve products, processes, and business models, helping them stay ahead of competitors. Brand and reputation build trust with customers and stakeholders, leading to pricing power, customer loyalty, and stable cash flows. Architecture refers to quality of relationship a firm builds with employees, suppliers, distributors, and partners. Strategic assets are unique sources owned or controlled by a company that are difficult to replicate, such as scale of business, licenses, or technology. When these four pillars work together, company create durable moat. To deep dive in this topic, my colleague Janesh will take over to innovation.
Fozia. Across industries, the winners focused on product innovation, empowered professionals, and strong supply chains. Let's look at a few examples. First, Asian Paints. Asian Paints didn't win by selling cheaper paint. They understood customers better than anyone else. Washable distempers, multiple color shades, and different pack sizes solve real problems. Paint is bulky, demand is seasonal, and SKUs run into thousands. Asian Paints invested early in IT and demand forecasting. This reduced inventory costs and improved delivery. They also trusted professionals and gave middle and senior management real decision making freedom. Let's talk about another example, that is Berger Paints went even further. Promoters stayed completely hands off and invisible. The company was run entirely by professionals. They focused on premium products like Luxol Silk and Breathe Easy. Berger also introduced color tinting machines. Earlier, dealers could offer limited colors. Tinting machines allowed thousands of shades, improved inventory management, and enhanced customer experience. Marico shows how simple innovation can create massive impact. They replaced tin containers with plastic packaging. Retailers resisted initially, but Marico redesigned the packaging to solve practical issues. Plastic was cheaper, and the savings were invested in advertising. When safflower oil became expensive, Marico introduced blended oils like Saffola Gold to attract new customers. They also launched savory oats, aligning with Indian tastes and preferences. Page Industries, the maker of Jockey, transformed innerwear in India. They launched innovative products and changed marketing completely. Innerwear was displayed openly, fashion shows were organized, and the brand name was stitched on the waistbands. Internally, workers were treated with respect. Free lunches, structured training, and a strict no abuse culture created loyalty and productivity. Axis Bank focused on practical banking innovation. They bundled accident insurance with savings accounts, targeted niche customer segments, and adopted mobile banking early. Decisions were driven by data and processes, not individual judgment. They built their own sales force to maintain long term asset quality. HDFC Bank focused not on flashy technology but on perfect processes. They solved interstate payment problems for cooperative banks and gained low cost deposits in return. By adopting real time banking systems early, HDFC enabled faster, simpler, and more reliable operations across the financial system. Astral Poly innovated at the grassroots level. They introduced lead free pipes, automation, and barcoding to prevent counterfeits. Most importantly, they trained and certified plumbers at scale, turning ignored workers into brand ambassadors. The lesson is clear: these companies didn't chase shortcuts, they built systems, trusted professionals and kept innovating consistently. That's why they became the unusual billionaires. Now, my colleague Stuti will explain you the branding.
Thank you, Janesh. Um, branding In branding, when we talk about banking, it is fundamentally a matter of trust. Banking products are largely similar, so customers focus on capital safety, governance, and long term stability rather than just excitement or promotion. One of the examples could be HDFC Bank. They build their brand not through aggressive advertising, but rather through conservative lending, strong risk management, and consistent execution over decades. As a result, the brand became synonymous with safety and reliability. Now, when we talk about Axis Bank here, it built its credibility by distancing itself from public sector legacy when it rebranded from UTI Bank. The rebranding basically worked because the internal processes and the governance were already strong, not because of the marketing. I think in both the cases, the brand is byproduct of internal processes, not promotions. This sort of trust creates a competitive moat that customers are reluctant to switch banks even when the alternatives offer slightly better rates. Thus, branding in banking raises switching costs and act as a barrier to entry. Now, when we talk about manufacturing sector, branding is consistency. Brands are anchored in a repeated and positive product experiences delivered over long periods. For example, when we talk about Asian Paints, it builds its brand through decades of consistent product quality across economy and premium segments. Similarly, Page Industries, through its Jockey brand, maintains strict quality and control and continuous product improvement. This consistency allowed the brand to command premium pricing despite cheaper alternatives. Here, distribution also plays a key role. For companies like Marico, ensured wide availability of their branded product across urban and rural areas, reinforcing brand recall and habitual uses. In industrial manufacturing, where we can say that Astral Poly transformed the commodity market by offering technical superior products and educating plumbers and contractors. Thus, trust in the product performance rather than advertising built the brand. Over time, this led to brand loyalty. To conclude, HDFC and Axis Bank show how banking brands are built through trust and processes, while Asian Paints, Page Industries, Marico, and Astral Poly demonstrate how manufacturing brands are built through consistency, distribution, and experiences. Here, both the approaches create durable and competitive advantage, but through very different branding paths. Now, I would like to give the opportunity to speak about strategic assets.
Hi guys, today I am going to brief you about the architectural framework of the companies discussed in the book The Unusual Billionaires. This book shows that the strong business architecture is built through entering the relationships with customers, employees, suppliers, and the regulators. Firstly, the unusual companies, as mentioned in the book, deliver the superior quality, reliability, and services by putting the customer trust ahead of the short term profits. They create the strong brands, repeat the demands, and the pricing powers for the long term that the competitors struggle to match. Likewise, implied by the companies such as the Asian Paints and HDFC Bank. Secondly, the employee relations. Employee relations are treated as the strategic assets of the companies. These companies focus on the internal promotions, merit based rewards, ethical leadership, and decentralized decision making. As a result, the employees stay longer, develop deep domain expertise, and execute the strategy with consistency. Thirdly, are the supplier relations. These are created when the relationship with suppliers are treated as the long term partnership. Like the Asian Paint invested deeply in the vendor ecosystem and distribution network, allowing it to achieve the scale, cost efficiency, and unmatchable reach that the competitors find hard to replicate. Lastly, are the regulatory relations that should be handled with the discipline and transparency rather than exploiting the loopholes. These firms respect regulations and build the credibility with regulators. They also hire the independent directors to reduce the regulatory risk. So, in summary of this slide, the unusual billionaires are not just created by the aggressive expansion but by carefully nurturing the relationships across the business. As relationship driven agriculture allows profit, trust, and scales to compound after year. Now, I would like to hand over the next part to Fozia for the strategic assets.
Starting with Asian Paints, its biggest strategic asset is its distribution system and relationships. With millions of outlets and deep dealer loyalty, Asian Paints enjoys unmatched reach, faster launches, and strong pricing power. Berger Paints has built a strong brand presence and regional penetration, allowing it to grow steadily while maintaining competitive margins in the decorative paint segment. Moving to Marico, the key strategic asset is trusted customer brand. Brands like Parachute and Safula enjoy habitual consumptions and strong recall, leading to stable cash flows even during slowdowns. Page Industries benefits from its exclusive jockey licenses in India. These licensing advantage combined with premium brand positioning and strong retail presence creates high entry barriers for competitors. In Astral Poly, the strategic assets comes from technological leadership and strong plumber relationship. Then plumbers prefer Astral products, which creates high switching cost and repeat demand. For HDFC's biggest asset is trust. People are comfortable keeping money in the bank, giving it low cost deposits and steady profits. Axis Bank's strength is its large customer base and improving management, better risk control, digital services, and retail focus are strengthening in business over time. So, this is why focusing on quality, competitive advantage, and long term investing forms the core of the CCP approach. So, the next topic.
Now, the next topic, which I would like to brief you about, is the capital allocation across the companies. How the superior wealth is driven by the disciplined capital and not by the aggressive growth. First part is the focus on manufacturing businesses of the book. So, firstly, their investment is in the core business. That is, the companies invest in the core operating areas of the business primarily. Like the Berger Paints, focus on strengthening the core business assets rather than the unrelated diversification. I'm sorry. Secondly, the company only then reinvest the capital when the return on the capital employed is consistently more than the 20% of ROCE. And thirdly, they focus on the internal accruals for expansion rather than the aggressive acquisitions. Now, for the banking business, primary focus is risk-adjusted returns. That is, to allocate the segment that drives the superior returns without compromising the asset quality. Secondly, investment in the low-cost capital strategies like building CA as a franchisee to reduce the cost and improve return on equity. Thirdly, the capital projections is important, that is, adequate buffers are maintained before pursuing higher growths. And lastly, the continuous investment in technology and processes that enable the profit and growth is made. So, in conclusion, you can understand that the unusual billionaires are not just high risk takers, but they are the great capital allocators. That's it for this site. Now, next, let's move to the next topic.
These charts shows how long-term impact on investing in high quality businesses. An investment of 100 rupee, like taking 2012 as the base year, and investing 100 rupees in leading manufacturing companies like Asian Paints, Berger Paints, Marico, Page Industries, Astral Poly, and comparing it with Sensex has significantly outperformed it. And similarly, in the banking sector, investments in quality banks like Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, uh, It has also outperformed with Sensex. This clearly highlights that how businesses with strong competitive advantages generate superior return over time. Like we can see that of CAGR of both manufacturing CAGR versus Sensex CAGR, and that same for banking sector CAGR versus Sensex CAGR. It has outperformed with good companies, and that's it for the slide.
Okay, so now we have the checklist that outlines how to identify companies that can create sustainable competitive advantage and deliver long-term shareholder value. The first one would be industry attractiveness, the second one would be management quality, and the third being competitive advantage. When we talk about industry attractiveness, here we say that industry with low regulation, limited competition, and strong growth potential are preferred. High value addition and efficient use of capital is important, as industries are more likely to generate returns above the cost of capital. Ideally, such industries only have few dominant players who consistently earn high ROCEs. When we talk about management quality, strong businesses are led by teams with proven record of clean governance, transparent accounting, and efficient capital allocations. Promoters should remain focused on their core business rather than diversifying unnecessarily. The checklist also highlights the importance of independent directors and promoters who are self aware. The third and the most crucial factor would be competitive advantage. Companies should demonstrate sustained innovation, consistent investment brands, and reputation and strong internal architecture. Ownership of strategic assets such as intellectual property or license further strengthens competitive positioning. ROCs are higher than the industry average, around ideally about 15%. In summary, this checklist helps identify companies that combine attractive industries, high quality management, and durable competitive advantage, enabling them to generate superior returns over the long term. That's it from our group. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now that you've heard so much, almost everything about all of these companies, one question that really comes to my mind is what really connects all of these companies? They didn't really rely on luck or aggressive expansion. They focused on building strong systems, empowering professionals, and improving execution year after year. Across completely different industries, the pattern is the same: quiet innovation, disciplined decision making, and patience. And I think that's the core message the author wants to give from the book, The Unusual Billionaires. Long term success isn't about dramatic moves, it's about doing the basics consistently than everyone else for a very long time. That's why they are not just successful, they are unusual. Thank you so much from all of us. Thank you.